Choir teachers, do you want your students to be able to read music? Teach audiation. Audiation is the ability to hear and understand music in your brain. If we want our choirs to be able to sight read as opposed to smell read, then they have to be able to hear with their ears what they see with their eyes. The music aptitude research of Dr. Edwin E. Gordon of music learning theory, or MLT fame, suggests that the process for learning music is a lot like the process for learning language. We spoke our first language for 5 years before we even tried to read it. The basic process for getting your students to be able to read music with understanding, from my perspective, is the following. Teach your choir a starting musical vocabulary of tonal patterns and rhythm patterns within contrasting musical contexts so that they can speak the language of music. Rhythm patterns are based on how the music is felt in the body, the levels of the beat, and rhythmic functions within meters. We start off with a relatively small vocabulary of rhythm patterns in duple and triple meters, and we move to the various levels of the beat, feel it in our bodies, and feel the space in between the beats. This gives the body a sense of how much physical space musical time takes up. Tonal patterns are based upon the audiation of tonality and function. We start off with a vocabulary of tonic and dominant patterns, followed by simple scale-based patterns in major and minor tonalities. It is important to teach patterns without syllables first. Let them hear the sound of the pattern first without any labels. The sound itself is fundamental. Then attach your tonal or rhythmic verbal association using solfege. Choose your system, but just make sure it's the same system that you're going to use when you teach students how to read. I prefer movable do with a la-based minor and a beat function-based rhythm syllable system. And just like we do with language, it's important to give students an opportunity to improvise and generalize with the patterns, not just echo them back. Give them a chance to apply what they've learned. What can they learn from what they've learned? If bum 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 is do mi so, what's bum bum? Give them as many opportunities as possible to compare contexts, major versus minor, duple versus triple. As we're young and experiencing the world, we're constantly comparing hot, cold, tall, short, mean, nice. We should do this in music too. That juxtaposition of contexts yields clarity of beat and precision of intonation. And once they have that vocabulary of patterns and can speak the language of music, then they're ready to read. Just show them what the individual musical words look like, just like you do with language. You know what a dog is. You can say it, you can hear it, you can picture it, you can use it in a sentence. Well, this is what dog looks like when you read it. This is what do, mi, so looks like. This is what so, fa, re, ti looks like. This is what do, so, do looks like. What are these patterns? What are these patterns? After they can read words, let them read sentences. Combine familiar tonal patterns and familiar rhythm patterns, patterns that they can already audiate, into short musical sentences or sight reading exercises. And now students are reading music with comprehension. Students are bringing meaning, audiation, to the notation, rather than starting with the notation and working backwards. That's the way we learned our first language, right? Give them lots of opportunities to generalize so that they can take those skills that we taught them and teach themselves how to read new patterns, hopefully, in our repertoire. In language, we learn phonics so that we can figure out new words as we're reading. If we know talk and walk and then talking, well, then we can generalize and teach ourselves walking. If you show them how to read do, mi, so, then they should be able to generalize with a little help from you, do, mi, and so, mi, and mi, so, do, and do, so, mi. Again, what can they learn from what they've learned? And then put those new tonal patterns together and read new musical sentences. Lather, rinse, and repeat with new tonal words and new rhythmic words. New rhythmic functions, new harmonic functions, new tonalities, new meters, new time signatures, new key signatures. So that's the idea of music literacy from my perspective. Sound before sight, build that audiation vocabulary, and give students the skills to teach themselves. So what might that look like in a curriculum? Well, in my new series, The Choral Musician, I follow that recipe for success. In Digital Workbook 1, we establish an audiation foundation of tonal patterns and rhythm patterns. And then in workbooks 2A and 2B, students learn to read that same familiar content from the first workbook that they can already audiate, and then teach themselves how to generalize and read unfamiliar content. If you'd like to learn more about this curriculum, I'll post a link either up here or over here, and there's a sampler you can download for free and try out some of these ideas with your students in your classroom. Wishing you and your students success on your sight reading journey.